Welcome to the course. I am stoked to be here. So today we are starting things off talking about how to set up your diet and really just the basics you need to know to successfully create fat loss long term and to maintain that. So really one of the biggest pieces most people are missing when it comes to successful fat loss is education. So that's going to be a big focus of today, but I'm also going to take you all through exactly how to set up your own individualized diet structure. So this isn't just going to be a generic template. I'm actually going to talk you through how to set this up for yourself. So let's go ahead and get right into it. First and foremost, the goals of this course. So this is a 4-week course, and here's what we're going to be doing. Week 1, today, we are talking through how to find the diet structure that best fits your goals and lifestyle, and really just gaining an understanding of all these foundational principles that we need to focus on, that I educate my clients on, to set you up for long-term success. So you can do this without a coach, without me here to guide you in the future, because that's the long-term goal of all this, empowering you to do this shit on your own. All right, week 2, we're diving into how to troubleshoot common fat loss mistakes that stall most people's progress. Basically, why most people's fat loss kind of crashes before it really even takes off. Week 3, we're going to dive into how to really understand how to progress and adjust your diet over the course of a fat loss phase. Because inevitably, as your body changes, your metabolism changes, your hormones change, often fat loss will stall. And that, for many people, is another big barrier. You probably know people that have been dieting for years and years and have never actually achieved the result they want. We are not going to let that happen to any of you. So here we're going to take you through exactly what to do when that happens. And then week 4 is all about maintaining the result you get from this course long term. So we're not just giving you the structure, the plan for the diet, but also the diet after the diet, which is another big piece most people are missing. You're not going to be, there's a scary statistic thrown out there often, about 95% of the people that successfully lose weight actually regain all of that, which is crazy, right? So the goal of this week 4 is to teach you everything you need to know to not become part of that 95% statistic. So without a foundational understanding of nutrition, you won't successfully maintain a lean, strong body long term. Again, this is something I hammer home with my clients over and over and over again. Education and really having a basic understanding of all of this. It doesn't have to be complicated, but having a basic understanding of all of this is the most empowering thing I can give you, because I know you can maintain these results long term. All right, so the biggest problem when it comes to fat loss, nutrition specifically, which is the most important part of fat loss, is it really seems super mysterious and confusing. Mostly thanks to people trying to sell you stuff. So you hear things like, you need to go keto, you need to drink this detox tea, you need to take this fat burning supplement, you need to eat or you need to avoid these specific foods in order to avoid getting fat, or you need to eat these foods to burn fat. And then other common scapegoats and culprits get thrown out there are your hormones, your gut health, your metabolism. It really makes things super complicated. For most of us, it gives us this very convoluted picture of like, what does fat loss even look like? What do I really even need to do for fat loss? So the biggest thing I focus on with my online clients is simplifying, which we're going to start right now. So this is the nutrition hierarchy. Basically what we're doing is we're giving you a very clear list of what matters the most to what matters the least. So you can allot your time and your efforts that you put into your nutrition accordingly. So this is really where most people are mixed up, and it often gets flipped on its head with people focusing on things like meal timing and supplements, but they don't know how many calories they're taking in. So like this happens super often. I'll hop on a call with a new client. We always do an initial consultation call where we talk through your goals, what you want to get out of coaching with me. And also often hear things like, I think the problem is like I just am not eating my meals at the right frequency. And I'll ask like, okay, so how many calories are you eating? And people won't know. So this is a common thing people will get mixed up. As you can see at the bottom of the pyramid here, we have adherence as the most important factor. Basically, first and foremost, above anything else, even above calories, we need to give you some shit that you can stick to for a long time. The most optimal diet isn't the most optimal diet for you if you can't actually stick to it long term. And then we have energy balance for calories, macronutrients, micronutrients, meal timing and frequency, and finally supplements. And we're going to dive into all of these. So starting it off with adherence. So really, so many diets fail because they're not built around sustainable methods. And again, the most important thing here, I always say this in the initial call, I literally just said this. The most important thing is that we find some shit that you can stick to long term. So the problem with many meal plans is like everybody watching this, I could give you a meal plan of chicken and broccoli. If you could stick to this for the next 3 months, you could be ripped. And I could have a great progress picture from you that I could post on my Instagram. But the reality is, 4 months down the road, 6 months down the road, whenever you get sick of eating just chicken and broccoli or whatever strictly on the meal plan, then what? You don't know how to create fat loss past that point. So the reality is, you're going to rebound. You're going to gain a weight back. This is super common with keto, paleo are two of the other very common diets that I see people struggling with this. Keto probably most commonly is what people start on the coaching. If they've had a situation where I've been following a low carb diet, I've been following keto, and I lost a ton of weight. I lost 15 pounds, but then I really missed carbs. So I fell off track, I gained a lot of weight, I felt really bad, but then I hopped back on the wagon, I lost a lot of weight, it worked great. And then I missed carbs, and then I lost all my progress. And just over and over again, often for years. So in situations like that, again, it's just not sustainable for those people. Now that said, I don't have anything against any of these diets. Different struggles for different folks. I have had clients crush it on a low carb diet, on a paleo diet. Even meal plans for some specific people, some specific situations work. But again, we have to make sure that these methods are giving you the education and the tools to sustain it long term. Again, from the adherence perspective, or again, some shit you can stick to for a long time perspective. One of the most common things that throws people off is this whole carbs versus fat debate. So this is Diet Fits, which was a 12-month clinical trial of 609 overweight adults with basically the goal of determining the effect of a low-fat diet versus a low-carb diet on health and fat loss. And after 12 months, they found nearly identical results as far as improvement in health markers and fat loss. And this is something that I cite a lot because really for most people, understanding this is very freeing. And basically what this means is as long as we account for calories and protein within your diet, within a fat loss diet, the ratio of carbs to fat really doesn't matter that much. So within your calorie and protein goals, you have a lot of freedom to, if you prefer a higher fat diet, great, go that route because it's probably easier for you to stick to. Likewise, if you prefer a higher carb diet, go that route. It's probably easier for you to stick to. In this hierarchy of importance, or things that matter most to least, we have energy balance, or calories. Calories are energy. So the foundational principle to all diets that work is you have to eat fewer calories than you burn in a day in order to lose fat. We have very many different methods to go about this. So like intermittent fasting, you eat fewer calories at the start of the day. So if you eat a little bit more than you would normally later in the day, the net calories you take in is less than you burn across the course of the day. Keto, often we're eating a ton of protein and very filling foods, which results in you eating less calories. Despite popular belief, it's not because you're eating fat and you're burning more fat. Even like paleo is a great example of this. Again, we're just eating tons and tons of filling foods. But this is often, again, where people miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. And we get caught up in all these things like supplements, meal timing, and forget to account for overall calories. So again, it gets us in this very frustrating situation. I'm taking all these supplements. I am eating X number of meals a day with the perfect macro ratios, and I'm not losing fat. But we're forgetting to account for calories. So foundational principle, we can't bypass this. And another example I like to bring up here is the Twinkie diet. So the Twinkie diet, KSU professor Mark Schwab, something like that, Mark H, lost 27 pounds over 10 weeks eating basically protein shakes, Twinkies, Doritos, Oreos, and the like. I think he ate a can of green beans as well every day. The point of this is, as far as food quality goes, it was what most of us would consider terrible, but he still lost weight because he created a calorie deficit. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that any of you just go out and follow the Twinkie diet. The reality is we need many of these nutrients for health to feel the best. Also, typically the less processed the food is, the more filling it's going to be. So it's going to be a lot easier to stick to your diet if you're eating more whole foods. That said, it does prove that calories at right above adherence are going to be the most important principle for your fat loss. And then we have our macronutrients. So basically all the foods you eat are composed of the macronutrients protein, carbs, and fat in some different proportion. And also we have alcohol, but alcohol isn't what we're going to dive into here. So protein, first and foremost, is an essential macronutrient, meaning we need a certain amount of protein for health. If we don't get enough protein, you're going to feel really terrible, you'll have trouble building the muscle, and we put ourselves at risk for a variety of health issues. Now, protein contains about 4 calories per gram. So when you hear people talking about macros, and we talk about like, oh, should I track my macros or should I track my calories? They're essentially the same thing. Your macros are just what your calories are made up of. So protein contains 4 calories per gram, fat contains 9 calories per gram, and carbs contain 4 calories per gram. So all the calories you're taking in are some composition of those. It just depends on if you're tracking the specific macros or you're tracking calories. Protein is super important because it's going to be the building block of all your muscle. The typical Western diet is typically very low in protein. Now, protein has the highest thermic effect of all the foods, meaning you burn the most calories during digestion eating protein. So all the food we eat, we actually burn off some calories digesting it. Protein is somewhere from 20 to 30%, carbs anywhere from 5 to 15%, and then fats, 0 to 5% of the calories we eat are actually burned off during digestion. So I typically tell people that the closest thing we have to a fat loss hack is eating a lot of protein, or for most people, it's just bumping protein up to about where it should be. Because again, we're burning more calories than we're eating just by, even if you keep your overall calories the same, but you increase the percentage of protein that you're eating, you're actually burning off more of those calories. Super cool. Also, lean protein is the most filling per calorie of all our foods. So by eating more lean protein, it's just gonna be harder to overeat. Again, makes it a lot easier to stick to your diet. So typically it's smart to aim for about 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And we'll get into setting all this up for your macros or tracking calories of protein in just a little bit here. Next up, we have carbs. Carbs are non-essential macro. So if you don't eat carbs, most of us will be just fine. You might not feel as great as you normally would, but you're not gonna die. Or have any serious health issues. It's very unlikely you'll have serious health issues, I should say. Carbs contain about 4 calories per gram, and they are your body's preferred fuel source. So the thing with carbs is, if we don't have them, our ability to exercise intensely, our ability to go hard at the gym, and some of our recovery is going to be a lot more challenging. We're not going to be able to push as hard at the gym. So therefore, if your goal is to build a lean, strong body, for most people, it makes sense to include some carbs in your diet. Carbs also have an inverse relationship with cortisol, which is the fight or flight, or the stress hormone. So basically, when we are super stressed out, which many of us are, we enter what we call a fight or flight state. So in a fight or flight state, basically your body is preparing to either fight or flee, which is very useful if, for example, we are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and we need this fight or flight state, which basically it pulls energy from all these processes that aren't vital to surviving right now. So think like digestion of food, production of sex hormones, building lean muscle. All those things aren't important to your survival right now. So your body actually slows those processes down quite a bit. So it can just be better prepared to like push blood flow to your limbs, for example. So you're better prepared to fight or flee. Now, in some situations, this is a good thing. Even like in the gym, getting ready for a heavy set at the start of your workout, like a heavy set of squats, probably something that's useful. But if we're constantly in this fight or flight state, which many of us are, then our body is never able to rest and digest, so to speak. We're never able to build as much lean muscle as we want, create all these different sex hormones that are very important. So it's also important that we spend time in a rest or digest state, basically a state where we're not stressed out. Now, again, carbs have an inverse relationship with the hormone cortisol. Basically, we eat carbs, the hormone insulin spikes, the hormone cortisol decreases. So, especially post-workout, carbs for many of us are beneficial because they're going to decrease our cortisol levels and allow our body to really recover and make the most of that training session we just put in. Fiber-dense carbs are also going to be very filling. So if you're in a fat loss phase, focusing on lean protein and lots of fibrous carbs makes a lot of sense because we're choosing the foods that are most filling per calorie. So again, it's going to be harder for you to overeat if you're making these a priority. And really just think most fruits and veggies are going to be a good source of fiber. And finally, we have fat. So fat is another essential macronutrient. So again, we need this for our hormones, for our nervous system. It's important that we get adequate fat. Otherwise, we will again have some serious issues. And fat contains 9 calories per gram. Now, typical recommendations for fat intake are about 0.3 grams per pound of body weight minimum. If we drop below that again, we will likely have some issues, likely a deficiency of essential fatty acids. So 0.3 to 0.4 grams per pound of body weight is typically where I found most online clients feel good at. And then if you want to go higher than that, that's perfectly fine if that's your preference. Now, there has been a strong push over the last 5 to 10 years with the paleo movement for more healthy fat intake, which basically means that often people, again, miss the calorie forest for the fat trees. Kind of a weird analogy, but often people forget that even if it is a healthy fat source, we still have to count the calories. So this means, and I see this a lot with a lot of coaches that I start coaching actually, lots of things like olive oil, nuts and nut butters, grass-fed butter, and even super fatty grass-fed meat. They're very calorie-dense foods, which means it's very easy for you to eat a lot of these foods to go over your total calorie needs and eat more calories than you burn in a day. People often forget to account for those simply because they are healthy fats. Now, none of this at all is deemed as fat. Again, it's very important, but just keep that in mind as you're trying to hit your calorie goals. Next up, we have micronutrients. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a long-ass list of every single vitamin and mineral you need to make sure you get. Basically, just make sure you're eating 80 to 90% of whole foods. That's always my recommendation. 3 to 4 servings of veggies a day, 2 to 3 servings of fruit per day, and just work some diversity into that diet. And then meal timing, which is another thing people often get caught up on. Now, the reality is it's not that important for most people if your goal is just to get lean and strong. If you are getting ready for a bodybuilding show, or you want to get every last bit out of your training, then we can get more specific here. But for most of us, with just the goals of general fat loss and feeling better overall, this is not important. Unless, again, it messes with your adherence. So one example that came to my mind here was my client, Colin. So Colin is a very busy guy. He's also has a very sedentary job. At the end of the day, Colin has probably taken generally around 3,000 steps per day. So because of his job, he isn't all that active. He also has a family that a couple times a week likes to go out to eat for dinner. So the reality is for Colin, who is also in a fat loss phase, he just can't eat that many calories if he wants to get lean. But we also know that for him, these dinners with his family are very important. I just told him, you gotta skip these dinners with your family, dude. This fat loss, if we're talking about like, again, some shit you can stick to for a long time, this fat loss plan wouldn't work for him. So for Colin, we actually have him fast until about noon. He has a protein shake right before his first workout, eats some more protein after. So he skips breakfast entirely. That leaves him typically about 800 or 1,000 calories. So if he needs to go out with his family, if he wants to go out with his family that night, if his family decides to go out, I should say, he can work that meal in. He can still spend that time with his family. He can still enjoy his life. And also, if he doesn't go out, he just has more calories to work with in the evening. So that's a situation where if we didn't come up with a structure like that, meal timing does really tie into his overall adherence. But from just the perspective of fat loss, outside of things like that, it doesn't make that much difference. Now, like we talked about earlier, generally it's smart to time your carbs around your workouts. Pre-workout, they're going to create more fuel. Post-workout, they're just going to be better for recovery, dropping cortisol levels. And then it's typically smart to time fat-heavier meals further away from your workouts. So fat slows digestion pre-workout. If you eat too much fat, you'll feel sluggish when you're training unless you eat a long time before you work out. And then post-workout, it's going to slow all these nutrients being delivered to your muscles. So, and then finally with protein, it's just smart to eat protein at most every meal. I like to tell people to typically try to divide that fairly evenly above or between all your meals. But again, don't get too caught up in this until we have calories, macros, and even your food quality accounted for. And we're not even going to touch on supplements because the reality is most supplements are not going to make that much difference. So where does this leave all of us? Just a few quick things to wrap this up before we get into how to set up your specific diet structure. And I promise the next couple of ones of these will be a lot shorter, but this is just important stuff we need to make sure that we cover. So basically, within your diet, you want to make sure you're eating 80 to 90% whole foods, you're getting adequate protein and fats, you're getting plenty of fiber, and omega-3 fatty acids. So if you're not somebody that eats fish a couple times a week, fatty fish a couple times a week, it's often smart to supplement with a fish oil. Or if you're not, or if you are vegan, you don't consume animal products, some type of algae oil is smart. But past this point, we really have a lot of freedom to manipulate your diet to your preference. So all these things you hear, you have to do this, you have to follow this diet, you have to go keto, this is the only way to eat, not really true. And again, we want to make sure, first and foremost, you're doing something you can actually stick to in the long term. All right, so let's get into your specific diet structures. Basically, the couple options we're talking about taking you through in this course and how to set them up. All right, so first and foremost, we have the handful diet. So the handful diet, very simple. As you can see here, we're basically just using your hand to measure all your portion sizes. A palm-sized portion of protein, cupped hands of carbs, thumb-sized portion of fat, fist-sized portions of veggies. This really works great for most beginners to nutrition. So the beauty of this is if you're not somebody that knows a lot about food, or if you're not somebody that has any interest in tracking, you can really likely make huge steps just following this diet. So especially if your food quality is relatively low. So if you consider yourself someone that eats quote unquote unhealthy, then this will likely work very well for you, just via the property of what we call dietary displacement. So basically, you're eating a lot of foods that have more volume, basically less calories for how big they are. So they fill you up but it makes it very hard to overeat. So, and we'll get into this in just a second, but with the handful diet, we're just working on hitting X number of each of these portions per day. So as long as you're chasing those, the reality is a lot of the more calorie-dense foods that you were likely eating before will just naturally be pushed out because you're chasing these more filling foods. That is what we call dietary displacement. Also, this diet has a lot of lifelong application. So really, no matter the situation, I've really found this teaches online clients how to identify which foods are a good source of each macro, and really how to understand appropriate portion sizes for their goals. So no matter what, if it's 10 years down the road from now, you go to a restaurant, you're trying to figure out how much of your plate you should eat, you can just bust out your palms and you're set. That's the beauty of the handful diet. So if you think this is a good fit for you, this is where we start. 3 to 4 meals per day. If you're chasing more aggressive fat loss, I would go with 3. If you want to maybe just maintain or just go a bit slower, which is perfectly fine, go with 4 meals per day. Each meal is going to have 2 palm-sized portions of protein, 1 to 2 cupped hand-sized portions of carbs, and again, it's smart to do more around your workouts. So I would do 2 around your workouts, 1 further away from your workouts, and 1 to 2 thumb-sized portions of fat per meal, along with 1 to 2 fist-sized portions of veggies per meal. So, and again with your fats, I would do 1 around your workouts, 2 thumbs further away from your workouts. And then we have tracking calories and protein. So this is something that a lot of my clients that are lifestyle focused do. Like we talked about with the Diet Fit study, the reality is as long as we account for calories and protein, you can still see great fat loss results. The ratio of carbs to fat matter very little. So here we're just tracking all your calories in an app. I like MyFitnessPal. That's what I have most of my clients use. You just plug it in, it's super easy. You can scan the barcodes on anything that you eat. It is very simple. One of the biggest things I like about this is the flexible lifestyle it allows. This is really one of my favorite approaches for those that really want that flexible lifestyle and enjoy going out for foods and drinks more often. The idea of having a calorie budget really just allows me to teach you how to strategize where you'll spend your calories for the day to make social events work, for example, while still hitting your budget goals, so to speak. So think your calorie and protein targets. The ability to actually find a diet that works with your lifestyle, again, is what most people have been missing. So for example, if you are somebody that likes to go out for drinks a couple times a week, or you want to go out to eat a little bit more often, this teaches you how to make things like that work within your diet structure, for which for most of us is very important. And truly, I found with most of my clients that education on how to make this aspect of like your lifestyle that you want to actually be able to enjoy in the future, teaching you how to make that work is for most people what makes our nutrition actually sustainable. And taking it back to the handful diet real quick, it's one of the biggest things I dislike about the handful diet. It's really hard to measure out a handful of beer. So if you want more flexibility, this does make it a little bit harder. It also requires a little bit more prep work, because when we get more mixed foods, so like things that are a combination of a lot of carbs and fat, or protein, carbs, and fat, it's a little bit hard to measure accurately. And overall, it's hard to make specific adjustments just because it's a lot easier to like ballpark, that's about a palm-sized portion of protein. And we just can't get as specific as we can with tracking protein or tracking calories. So with the handful diet as a whole, I would look at this as more of a diet for those that are relatively new to their nutrition, or those that don't want very rapid results. We're okay with taking it a little bit slower and just focusing on a very holistic approach. But back to calorie and protein. Again, this is pretty simple. For most people, well, it does require you how to learn, to learn how to track. Most people have that mastered within the first week or two, and it's really pretty simple. And straight up, I've seen a ton of people get amazing results tracking their calories and protein. Now again, it's not anything magic about diet, just another way to control calories. But for most people, taking it back to that adherence pillar at the very bottom of, or that adherence layer at the very bottom of the pyramid, this makes it very easy to stick to your diet, and therefore people get great results. And then again, the education. With my one-on-one clients, I really like this because I can literally hop into your app and say, you were struggling with cravings at 3 p.m. on most every day this week. Then I can literally hop in your food diary and say, okay, what were you eating at 1 p.m.? Okay, here's how we make that adjustment. So like, let's add some more fiber here. Well, let's add some more protein here. Or here's some good sources of this. And we can really actually educate you on how to change this. So instead of like a meal plan, it's literally taking your specific lifestyle, the foods that you enjoy, and just teaching you how to tweak them slightly. So again, it's much more sustainable. Now, the negatives here are you do have to track. Again, tracking just isn't some people's jam. So if you're strongly against the idea of tracking your food in an app, the handful that's going to be the way to go. Another thing that I sometimes see here is people getting too flexible with their food. So the thing of only tracking calories and protein instead of tracking macros is you can kind of, if you really want to, create your own version of the Twinkie diet, where we're not so much like 80 to 90% whole foods, but maybe like 40 to 50% whole foods, and then the rest are flexible foods. The problem is, if you're eating a lot of processed foods that are hyper palatable, you're not going to be very full. 80 to 90% whole foods is smart because those foods are very filling. They digest slower. Whereas these highly processed foods are literally designed to make us want to crave more. So you can see how when we have to control calories, well, processed foods aren't bad. And I definitely encourage people to eat some, unless you realistically think for the rest of your life, you're going to cut them out. It's smart to work some in your diet. The problem here is if we're eating a large chunk of our calories from processed foods, you're going to be really damn hungry and your diet's going to be hard to stick to. So if tracking calories sounds like the way to go for you, first you want to calculate your maintenance intake. So multiply your body weight times 13 to 16. So 13 if you're very sedentary, say you work an office job. 16 is if you're very active, say you're a construction worker. So kind of wherever you fit in that spectrum, anywhere from 13 to 16, the more sedentary you are, 13 being extremely sedentary to 16 being very active. That'll give you a number, probably somewhere from 1,600 to, for most of us, probably 3,500 calories. That is your maintenance intake. So none of this is perfect, and that's okay. The beauty is in the adjustments, but that's about where we estimate that you'll maintain your weight. From there, we need to figure out your deficit calorie intake. So here you're going to multiply that last number you just got times 0.85. So we're decreasing that, and this is where we're estimating you will lose. Now, if you want to be a bit more aggressive, I would go times 0.82. If you want to be less aggressive, I would go times 0.9. And if you just want to hang out where you're at again, just hang out at maintenance, just use this initial number we came up with. From there, we're going to figure out your protein intake. So just take your body weight times 0.8 to 1. If you're pretty adept at eating protein, I would go 1, or we can even push it a little bit higher to like 1.1 or 1.2. If you struggle to eat protein, just start at 0.8. You'll still get the benefits of protein, so get a lot of satiety out of it. So this number you get is protein in grams. So we can convert that to calories to figure out how many of your overall calories from this number we just determined with your deficit intake will come from protein. Just multiply the number you get for body weight times 0.8 to 1 times 4. That's the amount of calories you need to eat for protein, and the rest of them you can fill with carbs to fat as you wish. Finally, we have tracking macros. So pros of tracking macros. So here, when we're tracking macros, basically, again, we give you goals for protein, carbs, fat. I want you to eat this many grams of each per day. Be within 10 grams of your protein, your carb goals, 5 grams of your fat goal. We can get very, very specific here. So for my clients that want to get ready for a photo shoot, for example, or for somebody getting ready for like a powerlifting meet, we want to get hyper specific. This is smart. This will also give you the most optimal or the quickest results, because again, we can get super dialed in with like, this is exactly how many carbs you're going to eat. Here's where you're going to time them around your workouts. Here's how you spread your protein and make sure we get it in these proportions each. Here's where I want you to put all your fats. So again, your results will be slightly quicker. That said, for fat loss specifically, it's not like your results are going to double as opposed to if you were tracking calories and protein, but they will be more optimal. So if you want the quickest results possible, this is probably smart, but like I'm going to talk about, you're also going to put in more work. Finally, this allows me to give the most education. So I really like this because it does, like for a lot of coaches I work with that want to learn more about nutrition, this really teaches us how these different macros fuel your body, how we can optimize things to, say, improve your satiety out of foods. Some of the cons here, one, we have to track even more than we do calories and protein. And also this is less flexible. So for a flexible lifestyle where we have calories and protein, there's a lot of flexibility on the weekends. But now that we have these specific carb and fat goals as well, you don't just have this overarching calorie total that you're looking to hit. You have to get a lot more specific, and it is a little bit more restrictive. But again, that kind of comes with the trade-off of quicker results, slightly quicker. All right, so to do this, our first few steps are exactly like they were when we were calculating our macros or our calorie and protein totals. So figure out maintenance, figure out your deficit, figure out your protein intake. Then from there, we're going to calculate your fat intake. So multiply your deficit calories times 0.3 to 0.4. Again, this is kind of due to preference. So if you like a little bit more fat, I would go higher than this. If you don't really enjoy fatty foods that much, I would go a little lower than this. And that will give you your overall calories that are going to come from fat. From there to convert to grams, you're just going to divide this by 9. So again, we'll have a protein goal, both grams and calories you'll know. You'll have a fat goal, both grams and calories you'll know. And then finally, we're just going to fill those remaining calories left over with carbs. So basically, take this deficit calorie intake you figured out, subtract the calories you're going to be eating from protein, and then subtract the calories you're going to be eating from fats. Those remaining calories left over, whatever number you have left over, that's how many carbs you're going to be eating. So to figure out how many grams that is, because this number will be how many carbs you're going to be eating in calories, just divide that number by 4 and start tracking it in MyFitnessPal. And that, at long last, is all we have for today. So homework for this week, figure out your diet structure and your goal food intake. Drop any and all questions you have on any of this in the comments below, and we'll get them answered in the Q&A on the 26th, which is Thursday. All right, thank you for sticking with me through all this. I promise again, the next few of these will be a lot shorter. Have an awesome rest of your day.